First of all, thank you for having us. And I'm Elisa, and we are here with NDU asking a couple of questions to Kieron and Stephanie for the game Die. And thank you. First of all, how are you? I'm happy to be asking the questions.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm here for the food.
Yeah, I'm Kieron. I've lost my reading glasses already. I think they're at the booth, so I'm looking forward to the intubing over, then me running downstairs to check if they're there.
Why don't you send them a message?
No, I don't want to like that'll cause chaos when I get there. Anyway, this is my life.
Okay.
I'm having a lovely time.
Thank you. Thank you. Good food, happy times, and really good times. Okay, so first of all, I wanted to ask, I think that the idea of creating a tabletop RPG game based on a comic is really interesting and really original. And what kind of connection is between the tabletop RPG and the comic, if I might ask?
I can actually answer this question.
Okay.
The book is actually about the game.
Okay.
Yeah, the game exists in the book and then it exists in reality. What Kieron will.
Yeah, it gets very meta in that way. Like they sort of were developed in parallel. There was definitely a point when I didn't know which one was the dog and which one was the tail.
Okay.
And eventually the dog ate its own tail and became an Ouroboros of dog, a Dogobros or something, and that's basically Die. For me, it's like they're different ways of telling the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And also even more unusually, like there's quite a few RPGs based on comics, but this is one designed by the comic creator. I mean, Lancer, this also does that, but this is specifically what Die does is lets you tell the story of Die and make it your own. Because Die is basically a story of a group of people who go to this fantasy world. This fantasy world externalizes their traumas, regrets, and hopes, and then they decide at the end to go home or not. And it's got to be unanimous. And basically what the game does is, okay, how do you make a group of messy people? How do you take into a fantasy world and put their messiness in front of them? And then how do you get to the climax? That kind of, so it's basically me like writing, this is how I did it. Now you can do it at home, because RPGs are kind of this call to action. That's kind of the idea anyway.
And also because in our book the time is really relative and turning around itself. Like the book exists, like the RPG already exists in the book, but it makes sense that we made it after too.
Yeah, there's a kind of like, there's a lot of, there's timey-wimey stuff to go Doctor Who, but like explicitly every single story of Die RPG that you play is canon to the comic, because there's a place where all the stories happen inside Die of the comic. So in other words, all that is part of that world. So in other words, like, oh yeah, if you're playing Die, it's now canon. And that's kind of, because fantasy is infinite. That's kind of a minor part. Not a minor part, it's an interesting like aspect of the book. And comic.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That is actually really interesting. We kind of noticed that the figure of the master is a little bit more than a narrator that takes you through the plot, and it almost kind of seems like there is a little bit of a veiled critic on the classic figure of the master that looks over the plot and guides the players through the plot. Do you have anything to say about it? Is it true? Is it actually something that you wanted to show?
Well, this is question.
Right, obviously the Die is a deconstruction. So basically it's playing game. All the stuff is playing games of some sort with the classes, like the bar. But the dictators, imagine bards if bards were petrifying. The idea that let's really like talking to emotion control, because emotional control is abusive. You know, that kind of that's in Die. Like, and it's not saying critiquing is probably the wrong word, but giving it a different angle.
Yeah, sure.
But the master is about the idea of. It definitely plays to the idea of the D&D dungeon master as antagonist, because like we've been a long time since the DM has been viewed as an antagonist. Like you got to go quite, but let's play with that. Let's actually accept, okay, the DM is the villain. and there's a tension in the game between you playing the master, you playing the GM, where you are playing a GM, and you playing the master when you are playing the antagonist. And it's interesting, you have both those roles. So in the game, is the master just an NPC, or is it something, is he become a PC at some point? You know, these are kind of like questions which every table kind of answers themselves, and that's kind of part of the thing about Die for me. It's explicitly like what are games for. That's the kind of what the comics about. In some way, that's what the game's about. In that kind of like, the book asks a lot of questions, and you all work out your answer. And I don't mean that in a high level way. I mean in a low level way as well. As in, okay, this game's gonna have a bit more fighting it, or this game's gonna have a bit more kissing it. And that's like these are things you make in every single game you play. You decide around the table what the game's going to be. But Die makes that text a bit. So it's an interrogative lens, I might say. Yeah, that's the way, an interrogative lens upon what the role of the GM is.
Okay, thank you. That was really a nice a nice different view. That's actually it. And it was also really interesting seeing how the antagonist takes a really active role in all of it, and actually antagonizes.
Yeah.
And okay. I'm not really used to everything. But
don't worry, like, interviews are weird. I used to be a journalist, so I feel you.
Okay. Thank you. So you know how the start is everything. Okay. I also have a little question about the paragons and all of the classes, and let's call them archetypes because it's a more general term. And we saw that they are all really well-rounded and very interesting, but we also the one that caught our attention the most was the dictator. That it's really peculiar the way how they use emotions to impose themselves on people. And first of all, I had the general question: how did you come up with this kind of really, I wouldn't call it weird, but like peculiar archetype?
It's telling that, you know, in the previous question, that's the one I mentioned, as in dictator is, you know, the bards, if everyone was fucking petrified of bards. Like, let's do this. And all the classes kind of come from that point, as in some way, like, the emotionizes me looking at, okay, how can I make paladins more interesting? Let's do something else. More interesting is rude, but like, let's dig into them in a different way. So dictator is like, okay, if you control people's emotions, that's actually creepy. And the idea, like, but you know, that's not what games. I love potion is obviously rape. That's the most basic way of putting it. Let's do a character, and this is your power. Do you use that power? Because it's the thing about the dictator is, like, at the table, I've definitely played. Not everyone uses that ability. They keep it. I've seen people go all the way through the game and not use that ability. But the thing is, the dictator is still. You know, what's the point of that then? But it's like, the dictator's still carrying this gun around, you know, and everyone's looking at this gun this person's got. Yeah. And of course, the real problem of the game is like making sure it's safe. You know, like, because you can remove the dictator from the game. That's the most obvious thing. You can limit what the dictator can do to the other players. Like, ironically, you know, it's a character about it's a character about breach of consent, but at the same time, the game is about consent. It has to be. That's why you say what the game. I said earlier, what's the game going to be to people? So it's like, let's just take this seriously. But also, like, it also comes to me thinking about art, because bards are artists. And what is art? But art, you know, if I sang a song to somebody and it made them feel an emotion, what have I transgressed? You know, like, that's what art is. Art is actually emotional control. But let's take that and make it creepy. And in some way, it's about my own kind of.
That's an interesting way to see it.
You know what I mean? That's kind of it's me not being entirely comfortable with what I do for a living. The idea that I make people cry for a living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you cry yourself.
I know I cry myself as well. That's it. Literally, any story I write which is upsetting, I'm the first person to cry over it. But you know what I mean? So like, it's like I'm crying my eyes out now.
I'm like, yay.
But yeah, you know what I mean? So that's where it comes from. It's basically me looking about what is art anyway, and kind of make it creepy and make people, and that makes it fun in a weird way. Like, yeah. So that's kind of where the dictator came from, and it's interesting. Like, as a character archetype, the dictator is interesting. Is that most of the other characters have abilities that cost themselves stuff. Well, the dictator doesn't cost. It costs other people stuff, and it's basically dictators about temptation, really. As in, there's definitely the other way. Some people are like, I'm definitely not going to use it, and then they sort of start using it a bit too much, and power corrupts. You know, and that's the kind of the dictator sits in this kind of circle of other archetypes and interacting in different ways. But it's definitely one of the bleakest ones. Like when I'm running it, I'm not always in the mood to have a dictator on the table. Yeah.
You know, the creepiest thing you ever described me is the Joy Nights.
Oh, the Joy Night's horrible, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, a lot of the ideas of Die, of course, it comes from, like, this is what games are. You make up the rules and follow them through, as opposed to, pause, not quite true. You basically make up the rules and you don't even know all the implications of the rules when you make them up. So when I made up these rules at the Emotion Nights, what the Emotion Nights do is they basically feel an emotion and then they spend that emotion to activate powers. And there are these 8 emotions, which is drawn from a guy's psychological theory. So, like, how does that work? So, like, you end up starting, okay, what's a Joy Night do? Well, a Joy Night's got to be happy, but they've got to be, like, most of these abilities are about pleasure. But the thing about joy is, of course, contextual. What makes you happy? It's like, so if you're in the middle of a battle and you're feeling happy, you're probably not a good person. You're probably a really bad person. Like you feel justified. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, so, like, a certain kind of Joy Night. That's the thing is, like I said, I've got to say a certain kind. But you imagine, like, the most Joy Nights you would meet in a fictional setting would be complete sadists. Now, some Joy Nights maybe wouldn't. They would actually find their abilities around they'd find other ways to find joy, or they wouldn't. But that's certainly one way. And conversely, like, Fear Nights are fantasy.
I was horrified when you described it to me. Yeah,
it's like, that's what I mean. You think it through and you go, oh, right, that's true. Anyway.
Yeah, the Joy Knight being kind of a weird person is actually another weird way of seeing the gameplay. I actually had a parallel. I wanted to draw a parallel. Is it possible to kind of draw a parallel between the dictator and the necromancer in the more used D&D? Maybe is like necromancer. I don't know. It just kind of popped in my head. Like necromancer uses a really frowned upon magic, and it has to use it in covert ways. And the dictator, I would also see that as a sort of frowned upon, let's call it magic, and the necromancer uses other people's against their own will, because they are already dead and they surely wouldn't
they were not normally fans.
Yeah, they wouldn't be fans of necromancers. If it's something that you don't feel like it's correct, then you can just totally call me out on that.
I think, like, what you're talking about is the difference between where an idea comes from and where an idea goes to.
Yes. Okay.
Like where the dictator, it came from the idea of, like, bards being petrified. Art is weird. Emotion control is creepy. That's where it comes from. Where it goes to is these people in society will be looked upon in horror. You know, so the second you've got the idea, you follow it through and you end up over here. And that's kind of where they get they don't come from a similar place to necromancers. Necromancers kind of really about, like, science. That's evil science. They're Dr. Frankenstein characters. So they're starting over here, but they end up here because they're both doing something their society will frown upon. And that's where they are similar in play, because they're both outside society in that. But how they're coming from different places. I think I can definitely see why you're thinking that, because there's so much about the dictator in the GM section of, you've got to make him feel creepy. Like if it just starts feeling like a power up, it's gone wrong. So you've got to always lean into everyone looks at you weird. Everyone's like. That's the thing. Like, even in the fiction, the dictators don't have to use their powers because they walk in the room and they don't want it to happen to them. You know. So yeah, that's definitely that. I mean, you know, interesting. There's literally hit level 4 in the dictator. You get a witch hunt after you, or like you get possibly a. Why aren't you being hunted? You know. So yeah, absolutely, there is that kind of, like, evil sorcerer aspect to when you actually play them.
I think it's way worse to be a dictator than a necromancer.
Yeah.
I mean,
you smell better.
It's true, but you won't go to like, you might go to jail if you play with dead buddies, but it's worse to play with people who are still alive. Yeah. You know. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Being on kind of a sequel of this question about the dictator and how it is sort of you don't really always feel like having a dictator on your table. Can you see some educational purposes with applied to these games, like teaching people how to, I don't know, maybe use emotions in a good way, or deal with emotions, and know that also in the joy night, not always feeling emotions is seen as good in society, maybe see that as a teaching moment?
I actually never thought about it. For me, it was more like learning to play RPGs, because there is, for me, as an introvert, the weirdest thing for me is to play for the first time with a new group of person, and I think our games is really fantastic for that, because you learn to who are the characters before playing the characters. For me, it was more about learning how to play with a group of people, but I never thought about it. It's actually very interesting.
Like, how to phrase this? One of the things about Die the Comic especially is about what are games for. And at least part of it is that we take things from games. And that this is kind of broadly, you take stuff from fiction. And fiction we embody is particularly powerful. Like, at the same time, I shun the concept of art being meant for educational purposes. As in, you're not doing this because it's good for you. It may be good for you. You may learn stuff. You kind of hope for that. Kind of like a lot of Die sessions end in catharsis. That, you know what I mean? Like, you're hoping people get stuff from it. It's not what it's about, but it's not, it's not the reason why we're doing it. Like, it's just what tends to happen if you do something that's artistically meaningful, I think. As in, you walk away thinking, what is this? Why did I do that? What does this mean to me? Because this is one of the secrets about Die, is that you create a persona at the start of the game, and then this real world person, and they go into a fantasy world and become, game powers or whatever. But like, the game is done by you asking questions about, okay, what's your favourite TV show, this personas, and there's always a little bleed, there's always a little bit of yourself there. So in some way, because they're coming off the top of your head, there's almost inevitably a bit of you in there, but it's that views into persona makes it enough deniable distance. So it actually becomes truer, because people often say, I want to play me and my friends in Die, and I don't say that because you can destroy your friendship group, A, but B, you're going to be less honest. Weirdly, through fiction is how we are more honest, and we get a safer place to play with ideas we would not normally ever consider. So, like, the answer is I think it's possible people would. I think I can still look at games I've played I've got stuff from, but like, it's not the purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Sure. Thank you very much for your answers. I don't want to take too much of your time. I have one last question for each of you, and it would be like sort of a quicker and a question to say bye to each other. What would your paragon be at this point? I'm going to start from you.
What did I play last time?
You played the Neo, the actual.
Oh yeah, it was Neo.
In the Die manual. We did all the iconic characters, ones who are in the book. We sat down and did a session with us and RRD. So all those characters are people we played. So Stephanie's character is the Neo.
I don't remember is there like an introvert night? I would be an introvert night. That would be my power.
There's like the
shy night?
Oh no, the actual what's it called? I forgot. I've literally forgot. My God, I'm going to run the game. Like, I'm so tired and caffeine. The attention night is actually basically an anxiety and hypervigilance.
Oh, that's like,
at least one way of reading the vigilance night, as in, you're constantly trying to be vigilant, as in hypervigilance, as in ADHD.
That's definitely me.
That's the kind of the ADHD night.
That is really interesting.
And that's another good example of one that just comes from, like, you made the rule. Okay, what is a vigilance night? Someone has to pay. Oh, right, that's one way of looking at it. I'm good. All right, what am I today?
I think you're the fool.
Oh, right, yeah. Honestly, like, most of the time, like, me on Blue Sky, I can rock a fool in that kind of, like, hopefully nicer than Chuck. Yeah, I think I feel pretty foolish today, and honestly, I think the idea of me not having a Diet Coke already, that was a foolish idea, and we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you very much. It was lovely speaking to you, and I'm at this point enjoy your your lunch. Yeah, and I hope you're going to find your reading glasses. Do you have any goodbye, any last word, any last phrase, catchphrase?
Do you have a catchphrase? I don't have a catchphrase. Say au revoir, merci.
Ciao.
Thank you very much. It was lovely.
Thanks for staying with us. If you've enjoyed yourself, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more content.